Good evening. Welcome to the regular Planning Commission, Grand Blanc Township, January 4th, 2024. Happy New Year to everyone. Please rise and join us in the Pledge of Allegiance.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Planning Commission members present this evening, we have Mr. Andre, Ms. Coulter, Mr. Johnson, Mr. Gellings, Mr. Yancho, Mr. Hoffman, Mr. Bush, and our Planning and Zoning Administrator, Chief, do it all. Sure. Here as well. Next item on our agenda is an opportunity for anyone to address the Planning Commission. An opportunity for public comment for anything that's not on the agenda, or not anything on the agenda that doesn't have a public hearing. We don't have a public hearing on anything this evening, so. Anyone want to address the Planning Commission? If not, we'll close public comment. Move on to approval of the minutes, December 7th, 2023. Mr. Secretary?
Yes, I've reviewed the minutes, and I believe that they are correct. So I would like to make a motion that we approve the minutes as presented.
Motion by Mr. Yancho to
Support.
approve the minutes, support by Mr. Bush. Any other discussion? All those in favor signal by saying aye.
Aye.
Those opposed? Motion passes 7-0. Next item be approval of this evening's agenda. Any changes?
None.
All right. Someone would like to make a motion to approve the agenda as presented?
I also move.
I'll support.
Motion by Mr. Yancho, support by Mr. Johnson to approve the agenda as presented. All those in favor signal by saying aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, motion passes 7-0. Next item is correspondence. I didn't see any here.
None today.
No old business? New business, zoning case 677, Paragon Development, introduction for a zoning change. Are we gonna give us an overview, or are we gonna go to the
I
app?
think I'll let the applicants speak first, and then I can give my spiel. I have a review in there, but I guess that's more for the public hearing if we deem that going forward.
Hello, my name is George Rizik, R-I-Z-I-K, 9400 South Saginaw Street, Suite E, Grand Blanc, Michigan. I represent the applicant in this matter, it's Paragon. This involves a parcel of property that's on the north side of Baldwin Road, west of Saginaw Street, east of the old Trim Pines Farm. The pond, first pond you come to on Baldwin Road on the north side after you go west from Saginaw Street. It's the property that has a small isthmus that comes up to the Baldwin Road, then goes behind the pond, includes the pond though. We're requesting a rezoning from current R1 to NC Neighborhood Commercial. And we had waited a long time for this. We had talked about it a long time with Mr. Smith, and eventually the Planning Commission and the board modified your ordinance to, I think it was kind of understood before, that NC was supposed to be a form of cumulative zoning, so that all zoning districts underneath NC would be included, but that was, I think, apparently passed formally last year. And so we're asking not for specific use, but it'll be some use as either an NC or one of the zones that are underneath NC. We've submitted a written presentation together with a lot of exhibits. I don't really want to, I think I have to go into it now. You've had it. I know you guys are pretty good about reading these things. I stand here ready to answer your questions. We've done a takeoff. We had Lisa Easterwood from Fleiss do a takeoff under current zoning, showing a straight plan under residential, showing the maximum number of units we could get. and that's attached as Exhibit B, which really, I think, if I were to use the term sort of locally, sells the rezoning on this one, because it allows for, I believe it was 11 units, 11 lots. And with those lots, you can see the road is essentially almost 100% unloaded. Almost the full length of the road is unloaded on one side and probably 80 or 90% unloaded on the other side. Obviously, when you put a road in, you want to put units on both sides because that goes towards spreading the infrastructure among the lots. This is not a parcel where you can spread the road cost and utility costs among a bunch of lots. You essentially have all the lots gathered upon two cul-de-sacs, whereas the long stretch of road is essentially unloaded. I think there's only one unit, if you look at the drawing, that would have direct access to the main road coming in. The others seem to have a better location coming off one of the two cul-de-sacs. So because of that, then we ran a takeoff, and that's Exhibit D, showing development costs, take-up time, interest costs, land cost, and we see we try to do this, we lose money. No matter how fast we sell it, we would lose money. Even if we flipped it in one day, we would lose money. Obviously, you're going to take the time to review that before the real hearing. I just wanted to highlight that for purposes today. If you have any questions about anything we presented, I'm here to answer those questions. The applicant, Mr. Odwin, the applicant's here to answer those questions, and Mr. Mansour, who's the real estate agent involved in this property, can also answer some questions. He knows more about the market than I do.
Okay, any questions at this point from planning commission members? Mr. Smith?
Well, this is a intro meeting, as per the zoning ordinance that we're required to have this meeting, to basically present what the applicants are looking to accomplish with this rezoning. They've complied with all of the zoning ordinance requirements, as you can see with the traffic study and the needs. It's very thorough, very detailed in what they are required to show. They've shown all that. I can go into detail if you'd like with my review. It's already ready to go. It's in your packet. We can do that, or we can,
Just any highlights that you want to...
there's no site plans presented at this time. The applicants are looking to rezone it. It's already changed on the future land use map. We did that back in '21 and changed all that. It's in the DDA district, so that's our business district. So this would be probably the first domino, will be the first domino in that area of that section that we rezone from residential to neighborhood commercial. They're going from the existing residential to neighborhood commercial. It fits within the rezoning parameters. I mean, that's pretty much a broad overview of what it is.
I was struggling a little bit to pin down exactly where the property, can you point out which piece it is maybe on this map? This guy should know, he lived next door.
That's great,
It's the pink, oh, okay.
that's great.
It's the pink area on Baldwin Road.
All right, yeah, I've got this. I was looking at the zoning to see what was,
Could I add something to it? Was a traffic study. That's going to be modified. I think Lisa sent a letter. There was a comment by Gilles.
Yep.
And they said, you're a little shy on some of your stuff, so. Letter, I think, earlier this week.
Yes.
And so in time for the public hearing, they'll be having an updated traffic.
so with a straight rezoning, we don't need to see a site plan, correct?
Correct. If there was a condition, if there was a site plan on hand and was ready to be presented, you could do a conditional rezoning, but they're asking for what's already approved on the future land use map. They've got some challenges, as you can see, with traversing that pond, but I think with in the packet that they've submitted, they've shown where the drive lanes are gonna be, drive lane is gonna be. It's incumbent on the developer and the applicant to figure out how to traverse that pond. They're gonna have to definitely deal with eagle, either mitigation or some kind of bridge, setup. It's, like I said, it's gonna be the first domino to fall. They may get into it with eagle, they may need more property, we don't know, but as it stands today, they fit every requirement per the zoning ordinance for rezoning.
So since we don't have a site plan and we need to consider anything that can go there, do you have just a quick summary of what other, or what could all go on here, I guess?
So a couple permitted uses would be professional, medical offices, banks, restaurants under 100 people, computer services, rentals, service establishments, showrooms, workshops, tailors, bakers, painters, daycares, parks. But what we've also added into that, like you see in the general commercial zoning, and what Mr. Reisig was alluding to, under permitted uses, it says, all uses listed as principal permitted uses in office, professional, and neighborhood commercial districts are a permitted use in general commercial. What we did a few months ago, if you remember correctly, we also added that into the neighborhood commercial just to make sure everything was lining up.
Anything below that, but not general commercial?
Right.
Right, so yeah, so anything, so in OS and PO, you can also do now, you could before, I talked to Jill at Giffords and the intent was there, but we wanted it in black and white to make sure that there was no gray area going forward. So anything in OS and PO is also allowed in neighborhood commercial. So if it's permitted in OS and PO, it's permitted in neighborhood commercial. If it's special land use, it's also a special land use in NC.
Wow.
Mr. Bush?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I know Mr. Isaac mentioned traffic studies. So, and I know that Giffords reviewed the traffic study and they had a couple issues with it, which is fine. But again, not knowing what's going there, I'm not sure how anybody could do a proper traffic study. And I guess, how do we handle that once we get a site plan, find out more specifics? That could make a modified traffic study, again, have to be modified.
It's true, your rezoning traffic study is different than a full traffic site for site plan.
Correct. Right,
Your site plan is much more rigorous.
yeah. Right.
So it would have to be revisited anyway.
It would be something that could be a condition on a site plan.
Okay.
Yes.
Thank you.
Anyone else have a question, comment? Mr. Yancho?
Yes, I don't know who to address this to, but, you know, we've got the Tech Village on the south side of the road, and we've got the Enterprise Park on the north side. Those developments all just have one driveway, one outlet onto Baldwin Road, which I think is the ideal situation for this entire pink area. Assuming that it's all going to be eventually rezoned to neighborhood commercial, I'd like to see a connection someplace, like along the back property line, that would allow vehicle traffic to eventually be shunted to one or two driveways coming out onto Baldwin Road. Is there some way that that can happen?
Sure. If there's congestion, and like I said, this is, as you know, some of the other projects that we've had where they've done the rezoning, they were on Saginaw Street, which is 5 lanes wide. There's not much more except for longer accel and decel lanes. That's about the only way you could get away from heavier traffic.
Right.
Outside of a median, which that's not in the cards anytime soon. But in that instance, that's something, again, that if we have a large enough, I don't know if it's per se in the book that says we can make them do that. We can always recommend things. And that can always be a condition, especially if it's a special land use. That can always be added as a condition, that you need an internal road, whether it be in the front or the back, to make sure that there's one in, one out. I know on Dort Highway, there was some questions and a couple site plans that were brought to my attention that have never come to fruition, but MDOT has control over that, as you know. They have a rule that says, I believe it's 230 feet or roughly 250 feet in between drives. So if you want more development and there's more parcels in there, you would have to have a shared driveway and access for, and only one access per 250 feet. If we need to put something in the book for Baldwin Road, maybe that's something we need to look at to add into the zoning ordinance down the future and make it a requirement.
Mr. Chairman?
Ms. Coulter?
I just wanted to follow up on Mr. Yancho's suggestion about having two, separate entrance and exhibit, or exit rather, to this property. And I recall, at least some years ago, this issue came up with the, that apartment complex on Grand Blanc Road, Redwoods. And originally, they had to work out a deal, basically, with the adjoining condominium.
Yep.
Because I think it was the fire department had raised an issue about, the problem of only having one.
Yeah, there's a gate.
residential.
If you drive through Redwood and trying to go into the condos, there's a gate there.
Right.
And
But in an emergency.
and it's a fire lane, so and it's a breakable gate. So if somebody needs to fly through there at 40 miles an hour, it'll break, but it keeps
Right.
the everyday traffic from going in through each way. I don't want to see something like that if we can help it, just because that's maintenance and HOAs and a lot of things like that. But if we have this internal drive that everybody knows that they have to connect, let's just say 4 big parcels, so we only have one in, one out, so be it. That's fine.
Okay.
I think that'd be a lot more palpable for developers. Because, I mean, if you go down to Metro Detroit, anywhere, Royal Oak, you name it, Auburn Hills, they've got a lot of that too, because there's so much traffic. So I don't see that being a problem on Baldwin Road. Because here's the problem too. Baldwin Road may have a turn lane eventually. How far, how long, we don't know yet, but I know that's in the works soon. But, that also may alleviate a little bit, but again, if we want to add that into the book and make that a requirement, then so be it. I think that's a great idea to have that in there.
I think it's important that you have two separate entrances in case one of them is blocked for some reason and emergency vehicles need to get through, especially if you're going to have senior, some type of residential
Yep.
use on this property.
Agree. Yep.
I know that this probably isn't published and out there, but just, have you gotten any feedback from other adjacent property owners at all, or? Yeah, I was guessing you didn't, but I was just curious.
We actually discussed trying to acquire the property from the parcel immediately to the east so that we could put the properties together and locate the drive further to the east. They were not interested. And there was no good reason why. I believe it was in an estate. There really wasn't a good reason why.
Mr. Hoffman?
So my first question is, it appears that we have an applicant in front of us asking us to do what we want them to do. Is that too simple of a?
I think you hit the nail on the head there.
Okay, I just want to make sure. Then the second thing is, if I could, to the applicant, or is there a way that whatever services you go down your road, even though they're not available now, if it does become available, can you still use that, what you're putting in? For water and everything, down the road. Right now, you can't use it to the east of the property because it's not yours. But will that infrastructure be in there, be of size and ready to say, oh my gosh, we did get the east side, now we can tap into that?
Our infrastructure that I'm talking about is the road. There's sewer and water along the street.
But going down in, I just figured, something main going all the way down in. It sounds like you can, I think I got my answer, which is good.
Yeah, I think let's picture, Flint Township, because it's so developed along Mill Road. Their DDA, which is Decision
Yeah.
Until you get down to where Pirates Park used to be, drive all the way there without ever going on Mill Road.
Yep.
That's really what I think you're looking for.
And what I can do too is, because I'm not part of the DDA, so I don't have any controls or rules and regulations, so I can, by the next meeting, whenever we decide to have the public hearing, I can peruse the DDA requirements and see if there's anything in there. And if there is, we can maybe copy it and put it right in the book and just say, per the DDA rules, this has to be done.
Kind of a piggyback to my first statement is they're asking us to do what we're basically asking the community to do. With the traffic study, it came out and said, oh my gosh, you're going to be increasing the traffic so much. Then why did we ask to have it in neighborhood commercial? I mean, I don't know that we could use that and say, oh, you can't do it. You can't go to neighborhood commercial because now it's going to have all this, when we were asking them to do neighborhood commercial. I'm a little fuzzy on that part.
We're saying you can do neighborhood commercial. We're not saying you have to do neighborhood commercial. That could stay residential to eternity if nobody comes in and petitions.
I thought that the future land use map was more of an indication of what we want.
It is, but we're saying you could have, just because it's it's currently zoned residential right now, so you can only build residential on it. They would have to go, it's a different scenario. Let's just say it's a house on a commercially zoned property, like we have a lot up and down Saginaw Street here. They're legal non-conforming. That's something where we want to change that over, because once it leaves residential, we'll never go back to commercial. This could stay in residential to perpetuity until somebody decides they want to change it to neighborhood commercial. So yes, we would like to see it go neighborhood commercial, yes, to your point, but it's not a requirement, I guess.
I get it, but what I'm saying is, hey, we want this to be neighborhood commercial. We would like it to be neighborhood commercial. Oh my gosh, you're going to impact the traffic too much, forget it. I just think that's a kind of contradiction.
Right, I see what you're saying.
Mr. Bush?
I'm gonna try to help.
Yep,
So you have a piece of property that's so many acres.
right,
So if we zone it neighborhood commercial, you might be able to put 6 businesses on it.
right,
Might be able to put 2. That's up to the client or the person that buys it.
okay,
So we're definitely gonna handle one store that's 1,000 square feet is not gonna impact traffic. 10 units of, on the property might impact the traffic. They might not be able to do that. But that doesn't mean we still can't have 1 or 2 stores on that property. That's neighborhood commercial. That's feasible.
I'm getting into the weeds here a little bit, where I try not to, but in that case, that would sound more like our future land use map. It's residential now, it's future land use map for residential in the future, and they would like to come in and say, we would like to do neighborhood commercial. I'm sorry, that zoning will give us too much traffic, we can't do that. That's where the rub is we're asking them to do this. How can we then say, oh, you're going to do it? Yeah, but we don't want to do it now because of the neighborhood, because of the traffic study.
Mr. Hoffman, can I interject real quick? So I think there's a little bit of I think we're getting into, because of the requirement, the township ordinance requires a traffic impact study, a rezoning traffic impact study. It's really an assessment, because at this point, we don't know what the use is. And so we're really working on a speculation right now. What they submitted was just to meet the requirement. And so I think you bring up a really good point, but ultimately, when a use is proposed and we have a site plan in front of us, we're just speculating until that point. However, I think it's valid that when a site plan does come, based on so many different variety of permitted and special uses, I think it'd be pertinent to have and require a traffic study at that time, based on what their actual proposed use is at that time.
Which I will agree, if the answer to this is, if it was already zoned neighborhood commercial,
Yep.
would they still have to come in with a traffic study?
For site plan, yes.
And that's fine.
Yep. Because we can use that as saying,
You can't put this much neighborhood.
correct, you can do this because it's a lower impact traffic-wise, as opposed to,
Satisfying.
you can put a bank in there, but you can't put a restaurant in there because it's going to be a higher use. Right,
Fair enough.
right.
The traffic study, once we get to the more detailed one, we'll have most likely, I don't know what you want to call it, recommendations of things that you should do to mitigate traffic impact.
There's a capacity
Hey, you need
analysis
to put
that'll
a
be
wider
done.
drive-in, so people can come in and out
Right.
2 lanes.
It's kind of like having a strip mall, and the last guy always gets screwed because you only get so many parking spaces. And if the first two, a prime example is the building next to, that we talked about, next to Omega. There's too many high-use type businesses in there for that parking lot. And we never should have, the township should have never let that go, because now we've got a parking issue over there, because there's just, between employees and, restaurants and haircut places and things that have a lot of high use, it's a mess over there. And we tried to rectify that, but that never amounted to anything, but.
So circling back around, it comes back to, it looks like they're doing what we're asking to do. I'm good.
Actually, that was going to be my next question. Tonight, what we're looking at is
Scheduling an open. Yeah.
Scheduling a regular meeting.
Yes.
Yeah, so
Yep.
we'll need to.
By the
schedule-
next meeting, like Attorney Reisig said, is that they will have the answers to Giffords' memorandum of the issues with the traffic study, because Giffords did the review of their traffic study.
So if we put them on the agenda for the next meeting, do that give you enough time for notice and everything?
Yes, because I have already talked to Lisa Easterwood, and she's already working on it. She just couldn't have it for tonight's meeting. So she promised me she'd have it ready for the next, whenever, if the public hearing is in February at our regularly scheduled planning commission meeting, she said she'd have it ready.
I make a motion to set public meeting for the next available day for zoning case 677.
I'll support.
Motion by Mr. Hoffman, support by Mr. Johnson. Any further discussion? If not, since he made a motion, we'll vote on that. All those in favor, signal by saying aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, motion passes 7-0. So we'll see you in a month.
Yep, so most likely that'll be February 1st, the first Thursday of the month. Yep, yep, yep.
You will not see me. Good luck.
Have a good night.
See you next month.
Right.
Committee reports, next item on our agenda. No?
I've got nothing, well, I do have one thing, it's not really a committee report. As you know, Maria, my assistant, is retiring. She set her official date, her last day of work is February 1st. So we've been training my new assistant, Chanel. She's been kind of shadowing Maria for the last couple months, so.
Is that the person that calls us for these meetings?
Yeah, yep.
It's been very pleasant.
Yes, thank you. And she's picking it up quick. We're excited for Maria. She's on to her next chapter in her life. 31 years of service. She's due. She's ready to go, and she deserves it. So
So we haven't had any site plans in the last month.
no site plans, no ZBA.
The ZBA is,
We only met in September, October, just to elect the officers. That was the only meeting we had last year. Yeah, code enforcement's going well. We're 89% in compliance. I mean, and that's,
day today.
what's that? Yeah. Code enforcement today was a bit hairy, but, you know,
Mr. Yancho?
I keep seeing these signs, wire, plastic things along Dort Highway Extension, for instance.
Yep.
Is there a way to deal with that?
we have code enforcement people that go out a couple times a week that are looking for
They're
that.
covering the whole township.
Oh, yeah. Yep. If they see it, they yank it. We don't allow those unless it's approved and paid for on a special basis.
Right.
Grand openings and such.
Mr. Hoffman?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I don't know if this is just the police department, but when there's a wreck in the middle of the road and there's pieces, plastic, metal, things of this nature, should not the tow truck or people who are cleaning that up get that stuff out of the road?
That's a good question. That's definitely a police officer, chief of police question.
So I'm in the business of speaking to this. Yes, the tow company is responsible for cleaning up any pieces, The fire department's responsible for cleaning up any hazardous spills.
It just seems all the time, you, after a wreck, they leave and you've got chunks everywhere. It just kind of blows my mind.
Yeah, I believe that the township has a contract with the tow company, so it would probably be an ask of one of the board members to call, or somebody here to call the tow company and say, hey, you guys have to do a better job cleaning up.
Supervisor Bennett would be a good one to call on that.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I just want to bring something up. Last meeting, we had a little Giffords came in and we had kind of a tech village overview. And I've been thinking about that over the last month because we just got Enterprise Park, which was a huge stance of land. We now have, what, 3 buildings on it that are a couple 100,000 square feet each. So as I look at Tech Village and the planning that went into Tech Village, by this board, by our boards, by everybody, we kind of got an idea of what we'd like. And I'm afraid we're looking at another industrial park with 4 buildings. And that's just been stewing in my head for the last month. So how do we, as a board, as a community, because we already know what we want. It's in the master plan. It might not look exactly like this, but similar. We got walking trails. We've got walkability where people can go eat, where people can go live. Well, if it ends up being Enterprise Park 2, guess what? None of that planning, none of it that we wanted is going to happen. So I just want us to at least consciously be thinking about that, because I have a feeling it's going to be Enterprise Park 2. Because if you look at Fenton, Kevin Johnson's one of the best contractors in the county, and I've worked with him for a long time, but he just built out the entire township of Fenton. And now he's moving to Grand Blanc. So just keep that in the back of your
I know
mind.
there was a lot of excitement when, the plan.
Sure. Because this is what people are seeing this.
Yeah.
They don't want to see another Enterprise Park. That's not what the people, I didn't have much to do with this. I wasn't on the board at that time, but I know a lot of you guys were. So I'd hate to see the hard work that this community's strived for end up as another Enterprise Park.
Well, to vary from what's here, that would be
I know.
huge. I mean.
I know. But how you stop somebody that buys the property and says, hey, I'm building a 300,000 square foot building? How we stop them?
You've got permitted uses just like any other zoning district, so.
I know.
You do have some stopgaps in there. I wouldn't be surprised if the frontage of I-75 wasn't semi-similar to what you see in Enterprise Park, but after that, I would say your complaints could be legit, depending on what comes in. We don't.
We don't know.
We don't know. I haven't seen plans yet. I've
just
seen
wanna-
preliminary things,
All
but
of us to be thinking about that.
we're not even. I mean, we're months away from a conceptual plan that they're supposed to bring us. I mean, it's moving. We're having meetings with the developers. Kevin Johnson's involved in it. He's moving it forward, helping the doctors develop this. So it's moving. It's moving faster than it was. We've got some headway. They're doing the engineering on it. They're figuring out where the road's going to go. The wetlands are bigger than we thought they were. Where's water and sewer going to go? All the trailways. There's a lot of stuff that's going into this. So it's moving, just not as fast as we were hoping, but it's moving. So when we get something, I mean, you guys will be the first to know about it because you'll see it too.
Thanks for bringing it to the forefront of our mind.
I just been thinking about it since last month.
Hopefully you're too negative, but we appreciate that. Mr. Hoffman?
Well, I mean, and I will tell you that more rules, more regulations, more you got to use this paint color, more you got to use this, I'm not necessarily in favor of, and nor are you. But at the same time, I see what you're saying here.
Right.
So is there something on that where we would like to have certain percentages of different uses and then say, once you've done 20% of this use, you can't do any more of that use until you do these uses? I don't know if that's possible, but on a much smaller scale, the what used to be Deer Park, which is now Walmart, Kmart, or not Walmart, Sam's, there were things in there that we asked them to do at that time And then as they built out and as they built out, they're like, oh, well, we don't think we want to do that anymore. The perfect case was there was supposed to be a playground there. Where the memorial is, that was supposed to be a playground.
Okay.
And it was put in there and said, we want this. And as they were building, they were like, we were like, what about the playground? Oh, we're gonna get that later. What about the playground? We're gonna get that later. And then they came up with excuses to say, well, we don't think it's gonna be very safe. At the end of the day, they pulled what they didn't want to do.
Right.
So to your point of, this is what we'd like, I don't want to go so far that if we want to dictate what's there, we need to buy it on that case. But there's got to be a middle ground there somehow, because right there at Deer Park, we lost the playground because it's basically, they didn't want to do it at the end. And they came up with excuses not to do it.
My one question is, did you have someone in my seat at that time, or what? Okay. All right. So that's,
Negotiations with Walmart were
Interesting.
tedious.
sure.
You know, they started arguing about what color the doors were gonna be painted. It's like, whoa, guys, we got a long ways to go if that's what we're talking about first meeting.
I know, but it's in there. The paint colors are in there.
There's a lot of things in there. Some things did never happen. Some things are still happening bad. So along with Mr. Bush's comment, there's a prime example of what we have in place, even in rules and regulations, are not followed.
Yeah. And we're working on the semis.
Yep, yep,
It's
yep.
still in progress. We're trying to get them on board to make sure that we're all on the same page, but it's a bigger undertaking than we all anticipated. So it's ongoing, just so you know, it's not being left.
I think it's more of a lesson of going forward.
Yeah,
Sure. Oh, yeah, sure.
all right. Mr. Yanchi?
Can we instigate something to put in the zoning ordinance about those collective driveways in the back?
We can, when Jill's here next month, let's talk about because we'll add on the agenda, we'll have text discussions, we can talk about things, because she's gonna ask, what, new year, what are we looking at, what are our top priorities for the year? Hey, we got these 6 bullet points we wanna knock out first, and then after that, we're gonna hit these other bullet points that aren't necessarily on our top of our list. So please bring that up next month. It's I think it's worth looking at, and like I said, by next month, I will double check and see if the DDA requires that to have the collector roads, or at least a pass through, so it's some way to traverse between sites so you don't have to go out on the main road.
Seemed like we had selected areas in the township that were identified to have a frontage road or whatever you want to call
Yep.
it, that was running across the town. They were limited areas. It didn't seem like it was.
Well, and we have a Saginaw corridor study plan, and I don't know,
road.
it's got Saginaw, Baldwin, and Holly in there, so I don't know if that falls within this thing, this area. It may, I'll double check on that too, because that's something that's, again, not incorporated into the zoning ordinance, that I think just got put on the shelf and people forgot about it. So if we need to revisit it, if we need to revamp it, we'll take a look at it.
Yes.
Chairman, I'd like to make the motion to adjourn.
Motion by Mr. Jansen to adjourn, support by
I'll second.
Mr. Andre. All those in favor signal by saying aye. Aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, we are adjourned.
I really was looking for